Dan Henk. Welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today my guest is Joseph. How do we say your last name, Joseph?
It's Mulak.
Yeah, I don't want to butcher it, so I'm infamous for doing that. So yeah, but
That's
all
not a
right,
very common
Joseph.
name.
What's the origin of that name?
It's Ukrainian.
Okay.
Yeah. Mulak is the English pronunciation of it, I guess. I can't pronounce it the way it's supposed to be pronounced myself, but
Yeah, I have a weird German last name, and it's a common German first name, but what probably happened is
yeah.
my grandparents came to Ellis Island and they're like, "Yeah, this is not your name." So I got stuck with that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what you got going on and what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, my latest book is a novel called Devil Music. Probably my first full-length novel. My other book in the horror genre, Ash to Ashes, is a bit shorter. I think it counts as a novella. It's about 50,000 words or so. But Devil Music is a book that I'm extremely proud of. It's been out now for, I think, a little over a year. But it's basically uh, sorry, uh, combines my two of my loves, horror and music, because it's basically about these musicians that go to this house in order to record their first album. And they chose that house because it was the house of a famous musician. That's like they feel like it's going to be their inspiring to them. What most of the members don't know is that the owner of the previous owner of the house committed suicide in that house. And then a bunch of weird things. It kind of starts out as like a haunted house feeling kind of novel, and then turns into something way different.
Did you base it on like a real serial killer or a real house?
No, no. I try not to base my stuff in too much in reality. I like to use my come up with stuff with my own imagination. So because I find when you try and base it too much in reality, sometimes it just doesn't go well. I made that mistake with my first book where I actually based it on some real people, like just used them for inspiration, and they weren't too appreciative of that. We'll say. But no, it's completely. Even the town that it takes place in is a completely fictional town that I stuck up here in Northern Ontario. Um, but yeah, no, definitely. I think it's probably my strongest work so far, and I'm hoping that my work keeps getting stronger as I go. But yeah, it's I've had a lot of positive feedback on the book so far from people who have read it, so really excited about it.
Okay, awesome. How are you promoting it? Because it seems like in these days, unless you're like Stephen King or Dean Narcos, like you have to promote yourself, otherwise nobody gets out there.
That is the case. And thankfully, my publisher does a lot of the promotional work for me, which is great because I am terrible at self promotion. But I look for opportunities like I promote it as much as I can on like social media. Um, Also, I rely on people I know who have read the book to kind of promote word of mouth, which actually does happen. Even a coworker of mine got his wife, his brother's girlfriend, and like a bunch of other people to buy the book. And of course, like I say, trying to encourage people to leave reviews on Amazon because reviews definitely help. Uh,
Right.
because Amazon, they only promote your work once you have so many reviews, kind of thing, right? And then Amazon will actually start promoting your work for you. But yeah,
It's true.
I
And
do as much as
reviews
I
kind of
can.
give
My
you a
publisher
feel
works
for it.
hard though.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But yeah, my publisher does they do a lot of the promotional work for me, which is great because, like I said earlier, I am terrible at it. I'm the type of person where it's like, hey, you should read this book. It's kind of like a book by this author, but you should read that book by that author because they're a better writer than I am.
Who's your publisher?
They're called Next Chapter.
Okay.
Um, it's a very small outfit. The main guys that run it are from Finland originally. I think one's living in Japan now. I think one might still be in Finland. They're kind of because everything's online, so they're kind of like they got teams from all over the world, which is kind of neat. But it was just another author friend of mine was publishing with them, and this was going back like 10 years ago. And I contacted them. I said, "Hey, how do you like this publisher?" I said, "I just finished the novel and I'm looking to get it published." And they said, "Oh, I love it. It's a very small outfit. You get like such a personal touch with them." And that, and so I sent them my book. They liked it. They took it and they published it 10 years ago. And it's been a great relationship with them. They're like as soon as I emailed them, they're great at getting back to me. It's been such a very personal relationship with them. They've been phenomenal.
So 10 years ago was your first book. You have another book out now. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, my first novel was actually a non-horror novel called Flushed, that I put out through Next Chapter 10 years ago. And then the year after, they published a zombie novel I wrote called Ashes to Ashes. And then after that came out, they noticed that I had published a collection of short stories. I had self-published it back in 2012, and they said, "Hey, we noticed you got this book out. How about you unpublish it, and then we'll republish it, different cover and everything. We'll put it under our banner." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." So
Well,
they
that's
ended up
kind of cool. They
publishing
were
that
proactive like
collection.
that. Like a
Yeah,
lot of people
absolutely,
aren't
they are.
proactive, you know. Like you gotta get a hold of them and
Yeah,
say, "Hey guys," yeah.
yeah. So Devil Music is my fourth book with them.
Okay. And
Yeah,
you're
so
saying the first one isn't horror, but are you saying the ones after that were horror? Or they have like a dark element or more realistic or how do they progress?
I've pretty much been writing horror since I started publishing. Like my first short story was published in 2009. It was a zombie story. And I published a bunch of horror stories in different anthologies and magazines and stuff like that over the years. And then this one novel, like my first novel, came out, and it was just one of those things where I had some inner demons, I guess I had to hash out, and it just ended up not being a horror story. It was more actually my publisher labels it romance, which still irritates me to this day.
It
I
was
fought
a
them on
what
it.
romance? What do you call it?
That's what they're marketing the book as, is romance. And I never saw it as a romance book. There's a bit of a love triangle in the book, but I never thought of it as romance. I thought more mainstream literary. But they say it sells better if they call it romance, so the label stuck.
Are you gonna put Fabio on the cover and like have him posing?
No, I definitely would have fought that one tooth and nail. But the book, yeah, that book came out 2012, and then I went back to writing horror after that because my next book was a zombie novel called Ashes to Ashes, which that one centers around two brothers that are estranged. They just can't stand each other, but then they end up stuck together, trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. Which
Okay.
a lot of people really like that. A lot of people really like that dynamic that the brothers had in that book. Even I had someone just the other day ask me if I was going to ever write a sequel to it because I left it on a bit of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I always feel like because they do so much zombie stuff now, it's kind of like what you add extraneous to it that like brings it to life. Because zombies are kind of one dimensional. I mean, they're cool, but
Yeah,
they're kind of one dimensional.
I always said I would never write a zombie story or a zombie book unless I had something that I felt was original to bring to the table. Because you're right, zombies have been done to death, and there's so much content out there with zombies that it's hard to find like the good stuff. You have to weed through so much, garbage nowadays that
Oh,
you
I
have to
know.
kind of,
Yeah, I
you
know.
know. But every once in a while, you find some gems. Like Brian Keene did it with The Rising, and
Right.
every once in a while you find some really good zombie books. And um, I find it weird because I always try to stay away from doing vampires, zombies, stuff like that because I never felt I had anything original to bring to it. And
Okay.
I think I've written more zombie stories than any other type of story now, when you include like my short stories. Because
Okay.
my first published story was a zombie comedy that I wrote.
Okay.
It was
What was
basically
that?
just about people. It was called As in Life, So in Death. It's out of print now. But it was when I went back and reread it a few years back, and it is terrible. I don't know how it ever got published, but it was basically just it was a story about people that, like, this guy dies, comes back as a zombie, and just goes back to his daily routine, sitting in front of the TV and then going to work. Like, he works at a construction site driving dump trucks, so he just goes and sits in the truck for 8 hours, goes back home, sits on that kind of thing. It just wanted to see if I could make a story out of something so ridiculous, and
I think
it
though,
ended
I
up
think
getting
it's kind
bought.
of
So
like
I
a
mean,
documentary. Like I don't know, like you see some of the movies that like when they first came out, you were like, yeah, that would never happen. And you watch them now, you're like, dude, they were telling you what was going on.
yeah. And then I ended up writing another zombie story because somebody was they were doing an anthology specifically on zombie stories that take place, like, from the point of view of the zombie.
Right,
And I thought, what better thing to do than have a guy wake up as a zombie at his own funeral?
right. Well,
So I wrote that story.
there's also people break zombies down to like, are they sentient? Are they not sentient? They're all different kinds of zombies,
Yeah.
fast zombies, slow zombies. So what was your approach? Have you had a
Yeah.
consistent approach with zombies in every story, or are there like a different breed, sort of?
No, I always did like the slow zombie kind of thing. I thought they were, in their own right, a little more terrifying, having that slow group of zombies moving towards you.
Right,
Um,
impending
and, and I
death,
like
yeah.
I like this particular story just from the point of view, because it's this particular, like, he's sentient. He can think and all that. So he's articulating his thoughts very clearly. But when he tries to, voice anything, it just comes out as these grunts and groans kind of thing. And so I thought that was a really cool idea for a story. So I wrote that one, which that anthology actually ended up getting canceled. But I published the story, and as it happened, not long after that, there was a guy who was doing an anthology. It was a charity anthology to benefit Ronald McDonald House.
Okay.
And so I sent the story to him, and he took it, which was really cool because I ended up getting published with some great authors. Like Ray Garton had a story in that one, Wrath James White, Graham Masterton had a story in there. So some really heavy hitters. So it was really cool to actually end up being in the same anthology as some of those guys. Like, those were the ones that were influencing me when I was first starting writing, especially Graham Masterton. So I was that was a huge kind of feather in my cap at the time.
Did you see
um,
kind of
but
an
I wrote another.
uptick in
I wrote.
sales? Did you see an uptick in sales with like The Walking Dead and that like a second revival of the whole zombie genre?
No, not personally, but I did see an uptick in sales once, like, they went, because Devil Music ended up being a more popular book than some of my previous books. So I've noticed that some of those books started to sell a bit better once people started reading Devil Music and enjoying it. So that helped with sales of some of the past books, which was nice.
Right, so they saw your style and they liked it and they went back as opposed to like it being like a popular genre at the time.
Yeah, I think when it came to when I was doing a lot of the zombie stuff, I don't think it was as popular because it was kind of before, um, or it was kind of before The Walking Dead a little bit. I think, like, before it, like, really gained steam. So I don't. I think I kind of missed the boat on the popularity train with the zombies on that one. But and then Ashes to Ashes, I only wrote that one just because, like I said, I wanted to have something original, and a lot of people thought that my origin of where, like, how the zombies kind of came to be was actually more one of the more original ones that they've seen,
Okay.
which is nice because it's, yeah, it was more like a, because it was all centered around a drug that people were taking that was turning them into zombies. And not to spoil it too much, but it turns out that, like, it's like little tiny parasites that were actually controlling the people.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
if it's a cool approach, I mean, even if it's like a often done genre, it's still amazing. Like like Ayn Rand, kind of revitalized the vampire genre. with Vampire Lestat, an interview with the vampire, and then there was kind of a lull for a
Mhm.
while where everybody just tried to bite it off for popularity, but then like 30 Days a Night came
Yeah.
out and stuff. So as long as you do it different and you grab attention, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's always a market for that type of stuff, but I didn't want to just rehash what everybody else was doing, so I never wrote a vampire story because I could never think of one that was too original. But I mean, there's some great vampire content out there for some people doing it. Like you look at the movie 30 Days a Night, that was a
Yeah.
great movie. And even in the zombie genre, there's that film came out a couple of years ago by Zack Snyder, Land of the Dead. I think it was Land of the Dead. No, I can't remember the name of it now. It was the one with David
Well,
Batista, but
Land
fantastic
of the
movie.
Dead is a George Romero one. It's like
Oh, Army
so
of the Dead. That's the one I'm thinking. It's Army of the Dead.
okay.
Yeah, that's if you haven't seen that one, phenomenal movie. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. You should check it out.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it. I should check it out. I've seen so many horror
Yeah.
movies, I kind of like get oversaturated and I stop for a while because, like, I remember, like, I really liked Dawn of the Dead. I thought it was amazing. So then after
Mhm.
the original Dawn of the Dead, the remake was good too, but the original Dawn of the Dead, and then I watched like Zombie Lake, that was garbage. I watched Shockwaves, that was
Yeah.
garbage. So it's like I kind of get jaded. But if I hear good things about it, I'll
Yeah.
definitely check it out. Do you,
Well, that's what I was saying earlier with with zombies. You have to sift through so much garbage before you find the little gems in there, right?
yeah, no, exactly, yeah. Um, do you have
But Army of the Dead with David Batista, you'll probably like it. It's a 2.5 hour long movie, but it doesn't feel like it.
right? Well,
It
I
it
don't
goes
really
quick.
care about how long the movie is. Like some people complain, they'll be like, "Oh, it's too long or it's too short." It's like, but it's a good story. Because if it's a good story, I'm in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it doesn't even feel like it's like 2.5 hours long. Like it feels just like a 90-minute long movie.
Okay. Yeah, well, those are the best kind where you're like so wrapped up in it, you're like, "Holy shit, it's over already." You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that Army of the Dead was like that for me.
Okay. Do you have any like movie or book reference where you're like, that's kind of the tale I want to tell. That's the way I would tell it.
No, there I would say that there's books I've read that I wish I had written. Uh, there are some books that are just so good, like The Manitou by Graham Masterton is a phenomenal book. I read that one in high school, and that was one of the books that made me really get serious about wanting to be a writer. Because it's just a very short, quick book, and I think it was his first horror novel that he did, and it was just fantastic. And yeah, every once in a while you find like a book that's so good, and you're like, I wish I'd written that.
Right.
But no, I never find anything really that because anything that I read, um, I've read books where it's like, well, I've had this idea and I wanted to write a book similar to this, but I would have written it differently. It's never like because I mean, only only you can write a book your way, right?
Right. Oh, that is one of the problems when you're an author. It's like you'll see creative stuff and you're like, I would not have done that. Whereas like when I was a kid, I watched stuff, I'm just wrapped up in the way they told it. If they make a move that, later on I would not do, I'm just like, oh well, that's where they went with that. That might have been unfortunate or whatever, but I don't think like I could have come up with the best solution. But yeah, that happens,
Oh,
as you evolve.
what I'm reading, I just took the earbuds out. But yeah, no, I was saying when I'm reading, I have to turn my author brain off because I otherwise I get too critical of the book. I just want to relax. I want to enjoy what I'm reading.
Right.
So like I don't think of how I would have done something differently. I just want to enjoy what that author wrote because, like I said before, like only they can write that story their way. And
Right.
that's what I want to enjoy. So I try not to get overly critical of. Well, I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have done it that way instead. I try to avoid that as much as possible because then it just feels too much like high school.
Yeah.
You're having to read the book and analyze it.
It's like that's one of the things that annoys me is like, like when people will tell you stuff like how to raise your dog or like, and I'll
Yeah.
talk to other people like, yeah, people tell me how to raise my kids all the time. It's like, how about you just leave me alone, focus on yourself? As long as I'm making an egregious mistake, it doesn't really matter. Everyone has different opinions and different takes.
Exactly. I mean, I know all about that. I've raised 4 kids myself, so
Well, good luck there. Uh,
oh, they're all old and well, they're grown and out of the house now.
Well, I know, like I'm a big dog person, and
Yeah.
I'll compare my dog to my kid, and people get mad. They're like, having a dog is not the same as having a kid. You can't compare them. I'm like, I just did.
Yeah, to each their own. I mean, I know some people that like they consider their pets like their children, and that's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Well, it kind of depends on how you think and what you bond with and all that stuff. But that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down right now. But all right. So this the what do you have out right now? Like, what should people check out, and what's your latest offering?
Well, in the horror genre, Devil Music
Okay.
is the latest offering. For anybody that wants to venture a little bit outside the horror genre, I do have 2 books that just came out this year. One's a thriller and one's a mystery.
Okay.
The thriller, they're 2 short books. I originally they're actually available free on my website when you sign up for my newsletter. That's why I wrote them, and they're 2 novellas. Inconvenience is a thriller starring a guy called Callum Doyle. And Not All Secrets is a mystery with a private detective named Tad Spanner. I wrote them basically as like because I'm going to do series with each character. So those I offered them for free as a kind of enticement for people to
Right, bring you in.
read them and sign up for the newsletter and all that stuff. And there actually are also print versions that are available on Amazon.
Okay. Give
Yeah,
a shout out. What's the address of your website?
it's just josephmulak.com.
Okay.
And
And
Mulak spelled Mulak. Probably have to clarify that for people. I've had
well,
some
no,
interesting
I'll
spellings
put it
in
up
my
top
name over
so
the years.
people can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and are they like shorter works to like pull you in? Are they longer works? How'd you go about that?
No, Inconvenience is the shorter of the 2. That one is print length. It's about 84 pages, 85 pages, something like that. And it would take the whole thing takes place in a convenience store, hence Inconvenience. I like the punny titles sometimes. As soon as I thought of it, I'm like, that's the name of the book. It's got to be no other way. But that one's just about a guy who just got out of jail, goes to a convenience store, trying to use a phone, and ends up in a situation where he basically has to help a 16-year-old girl that's going on the wrong path.
Okay.
Not All Secrets is a little bit longer. It's about double the length, 150 or so pages, and that one is more of a murder mystery.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
have
I ventured off into a little outside of horror, just to see what that was like for a change.
right? Well, do you have one genre that you prefer? Do you like to like jump around and like for me, I just like well told stories, but I find the ones that like are most attract to me are like tend to be more in the genre. So if it's not as well told, I still enjoy it more just if it's in the genre. Like, but if it's a well told story, it doesn't matter what it's about. Like Richard Matheson, he's one of my favorites. He wrote
Yeah.
a story about basically the Old West. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, this is a guy who did I Am Legend and Stir of Echoes and stuff. So this is definitely not his normal wheelhouse, but it's just so well told. I enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say this like I mean, as a reader, I'm kind of all over the place. Like I don't stick to one genre. Like I mean, I read horror. I love reading crime fiction. I read fantasy fiction. I even one of my favorite authors is John Irving, who's about as far away from genre fiction as it gets these days. Um, because if you're not familiar with him, he wrote like The World According to Garp, Sutter House Rules, which were turned into phenomenal movies as well. But and as a writer, I mean, horror is what I've written mostly. Um, but I mean, if I get an idea for a story, I'm not going to just well, that's not a horror story, so I'm going to throw it aside.
Right.
Which is
As
kind
long
of
as
what
you think
happened
it's
with
a
these.
strong tale, right?
Well, that's just it, and that's why I ended up with Inconvenience, because like that one was written out of the two latest ones that came out this year. That's the one that kind of that's the one that came to me first, and it was just a to me a great idea. Where because I had this vision of this girl that's she needs money for whatever reason. She's robbing a convenience store, and then this guy who just literally just got out of jail, and he's shows up at this store just to use the phone or whatever, and ends up in this situation, and then things kind of get darker and more twisted as it goes. And I'm like, I can't not write this story. And then I fell in love with the character so much as I was writing. I'm like, I want to write more books by this, featuring this guy. So that's the plan. Is I'm writing a series of thrillers with this Callum Doyle as the main character of each thriller, and then I want to do a series of the mysteries with Tad Spanner, who is the main character in the other book, Not All Secrets.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you approach them? Like it's like different people have kind of like different writing styles, like anywhere from like first person, like really in your face, everything happens in the moment, to like third person, very slow build up. Some people use the first person and third person, but with a slow build up on the first person. Just everyone has a different approach. I mean, as long as it works, it works.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, like I write in first person and third person. I don't discriminate. I love writing in first person because I can write in a more casual style. Like Inconvenience and Not All Secrets are both first person books. Devil Music was a third person book.
Okay.
And the reason for that was because there was I felt the way I wanted the story needed to be told. There was going to be some different points of view. So really, first person didn't work for that. So I ended up writing it. I started writing it in first person, then realized it just wasn't going to work. So I had to go. I went back and switched it to third person. Yeah, but no, for Inconvenience, I wrote it first person because I thought that just everything, being a shorter work and everything right from that main character, and I like that casual style because I'm writing it almost like the way someone would be telling a story,
Okay.
verbally or whatever. So I find that's my favorite point of view to write in as first person. Except that some of my readers have commented that my sarcasm tends to come out more in the first person.
Well, I started out mainly doing almost exclusively first person because I'm
Yeah.
a big Lovecraft fan, and that
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, oh well, that just makes sense. But it kind of feels like you have to be in the character's head all the time for the entire novel, and sometimes that's tiring, and sometimes that doesn't provide enough information. So you do have to switch it up.
Yeah, I can see that. I've never written like a full length novel. I don't think in first person. But Ashes to Ashes was told in first person, which I thought was kind of a neat like I thought it was a good vehicle for like that particular zombie book. But like I said, Devil Music was third person because being a longer book, I felt that it required a little bit more head hopping, like different points of view and stuff like that. And I know there are very few exceptions, but I don't like it when some writers switch from first person to third person,
Right.
and I find that distracting when
Yeah,
I'm
no,
reading that kind of
definitely.
book. Like
I mean, maybe
the
you
only
do
person I like get away with is J.A.
well, maybe if you do like enough of a break, like it's a different chapter, and so like it feels like a scene break where you start out anew with like a different perspective. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. People, and it's really awkward when people, I think, when they like break the fourth wall to be like all buying into it, and then all of a sudden the character's talking to you, and like it kind of gets your head out of the story. I feel like.
yeah. Well, I noticed like his like J.A. Conrath, he writes thrillers featuring a character Jack Daniels. And when she would like her scenes, it would be told from the point of view of her, like it's a first person point of view from her perspective. But then every few chapters, he would go into like a third person point of view, from the point of view of the serial killer of that particular book. And it took me a bit to get used to. Like it took me like three books of his to get used to that style.
Right.
Um, now what he does is because he's got like most of his books have three main characters, so they're told first person, but from each one of their point of view.
Right.
So sometimes you're reading the same scene, but from like the first person point of view of a different character, which is actually kind of a neat way of doing it. Because you get it from like the characters have different personality traits, so you're reading it. It's the same scene, but read in a different way, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, if you can pull it off, like it's realistic. Like one thing, I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, but he
Mhm.
does have some great ideas. And one thing he's really good at is believable characters. So when he makes a character and he puts it out, you believe it's that character. They act the way you would expect the character to. They talk the way you would expect the character to.
Oh, absolutely. Stephen King is like, say the like, if you want to learn how to write believable characters and like well fleshed out characters, read Stephen King.
Yeah, I took his underwriting seminar. And it's funny because some of the stuff he recommends, which I think is great advice, he doesn't use later on in his books. But
Oh yeah,
I
I
do
haven't
feel
read a
like
lot. I
it's
haven't read a lot of his later stuff. Like I read a lot of Stephen King back in the '90s, and I mean, like I give Stephen King credit because he's the reason I fell in love with the horror genre to begin with. Because my mother accidentally bought one of his books for me, thinking it was a mystery novel. Because
what book was it?
I cut my literary teeth on mysteries. Like I grew up reading like the Hardy Boys books and stuff like that.
Right,
And my mom was at a book sale and she picked up this Stephen King novel. It was The Dead Zone.
right.
And she brought
Which
it
is a great
home
book,
and
by
she's
the
like,
way.
"Oh
It's
yeah,
a
it's a
great book. It's a good movie
fantastic book."
too.
I think I was 12 at the time. And she's like, "Oh, you like mystery? I think this guy writes mysteries." And she handed me The Dead Zone, and then so I read it and loved it. And one of my uncles was a big Stephen King fan, and he had like the Dark Half and a bunch of Stephen King novels that he just gave me. So I read all those, and that's how I ended up falling in love with the horror genre. And I was going to the library to get more Stephen King books, and finally the librarian said, "You're only getting Stephen King. Like, try Dean Koontz, try Frank DeFalita, try Clive Barker." Like, you know,
I feel like Clive Barker has great ideas, but he's better at the shorter stories and novellas than the full length novels.
I don't know because I've read a lot of his novels. Damnation Game, I think, was a great book. I loved The Great and Secret Show and Everville. I thought those were great books. Personally,
Okay.
I was a big fan. My only complaint about Clive Barker is he's not writing more.
Well,
How long
he's
has it been since we've had a new book by this guy?
no, I know. I've met him in person a number of times. He's not doing well at all. He's like, he was like that
Yeah,
slick punk rock guy when he was a kid or when he was a young
yeah.
adult, and now he's like hobbled over and like using a cane and stuff. He's not doing
Oh,
his
is he?
health is poor. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame because he's an amazing talent. I mean, I still love Hellraiser. I was actually just talking to I forget who, someone about the Hellraiser movie, and they haven't seen it. They need to get on that because that was a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, I feel like
And the
some of
Hellbound
the
Heart that it was based on was great too.
yeah. Well, I feel like some of the horror originators have kind of fallen out of favor. Like I felt Hellraiser was great. I felt Pumpkinhead was great. I felt like the first A Nightmare on Elm Street was great. You know,
Mhm.
and it feels like they just kind of like beat the horse to death and then they just gave up on it.
Well, that was the problem. Like, Hellraiser was a great movie, but we didn't
Right.
need 10 of them.
Hellraiser in space. Whenever a horror genre goes in space, you know it's over.
And that wasn't even the case with Hellraiser. They still did 6 more movies after that one.
No, I didn't say it was over like they stopped. I just said it's over like as in the good product coming out.
I actually thought though, because that was the fourth one, and that's actually my second favorite in the series. Like, because I love the
Well,
first
I
one, and I
like
like
that
the
it
fourth.
tells you the story of the box, like how it
Yeah,
originated and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it was the weakest one, although I think that Jason X was definitely the weakest of the Friday the 13th series. Did you
yeah.
see
I would agree
that?
with you there.
Where they
Yeah,
bring it back as a cyborg and yeah, horrible.
it got corny real quick in that one. Like
But
it
it's
started out
so
as
bad
actually
it's kind
being
of good.
It started out actually being a half decent movie, but then yeah, when like those whatever they were rebuilt Jason and that, it started to get very corny, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done.
I always refer to him as the best character in the worst movies. Because he's like this undead, rotting zombie killing machine, but in these horrible fucking movies.
Yeah, yeah. My only issue, like the movies are always a lot of fun, and I like them because you can kind of shut your brain off and just enjoy it. But the continuity, like because there's no continuity between the movies, like the timelines just don't match up, and it just drives me nuts. I have a hard time watching that series, like
Well,
doing
they've been through
marathons, just because it's like no, that doesn't.
so many people have played Jason, so many different directors, so many different characters. And I was kind of
Yeah, I still
disappointed.
say Kane Hodder was the best one.
Yeah, I bet Kane. I met him a bunch of times. But yeah, it's like I remember somebody bought me this book. It's called Crystal Lake Memories, and it's all about the story of like how that evolved. And I was kind of disappointed because it turns out that the first movie when it came out, I think it was Sean Cunningham was the director. He said
Mhm.
we wanted to rip off Halloween but not get sued.
Yeah,
So it wasn't like we have this cool original idea. It's like, yeah, what's selling right now?
yeah. Actually, I think they made that into a documentary because I'm pretty sure that was I
Yeah,
watched a
they
documentary
made a
with the
film
same
series of
name.
it too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really long one. It was like a 6 hour long or something
Oh
documentary
yeah.
about,
Oh yeah.
and I've watched it a couple of times, and it's a lot of fun to watch. I love that documentary.
Well, they made some like fortunate accents, like when you put on the hockey mask, and then all of a sudden they
Yeah.
became the iconic character. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and yeah, I always loved Kane Hodder as in the role, and I was kind of disappointed because apparently he tried to get the role back for Freddy versus Jason because he wanted to keep playing Jason, but they wanted someone taller than Robert Englund to
Right.
play
Well,
Jason, so
I
Kane
know
Hodder
that
didn't
they
get it.
also gave him shit because he was like too muscular. Like he's a muscular guy, and like they're like,
Oh
well, you're
yeah,
supposed to be a running zombie. Now you don't look like a running zombie anymore. So I mean,
that's where they lose you, like running zombie, like like
I guess. I don't know. He seems to work out pretty hard with all that chasing and and hacking away with the machete. But yeah, who knows?
I mean the fact that it's a zombie, going around killing people wearing a hockey mask is pretty unbelievable. Like, we're gonna nitpick on whether or not he should have muscle tone.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, no, there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of like things that kind of don't make sense, and they all end up being like morality plays. Like the minute you have sex or you do drugs, he kills you.
Yeah, but like I said, slasher films, the whole point is don't think, just sit back and watch. If you think too much, you're just gonna be disappointed with what you come up with. Like, just sit back, enjoy it. You know, it's an hour and a half of just not having to think.
Right.
That's what I love about slasher films.
I think they're two good pieces of advice. That's good with the slasher film. I think when you have a good story, just let it be. Don't beat it to
Yeah,
death and just let it be. Like the first Pumpkinhead, awesome. The first Ascent, awesome. After
yeah,
that, way downhill.
yeah. That's how it is with most series. Like I love the first Friday, Nightmare on Elm Street movie,
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah,
but I didn't really like any of the other movies until Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
right. I
So it's
kind of
pretty
I
much the
kind of
only
gave up
Nightmare
on
on Elm
them
Street
before
movies I
that.
like are the ones Wes Craven did.
Well, I kind of gave up on them after that. Like I liked the first one, the second one. Like at the time, it scared me, but I was a little fucking kid. I saw it in the theaters,
Yeah.
and then when I see it again now, I'm like, that's kind of cheesy. But the original one
Well,
is not cheesy. It holds up.
no, the best part about the original one was Freddy was like he was scary, like
You're
he was
right.
supposed to be,
Yeah.
and then they turned him into this wise, like dad joke telling
Yeah. Exactly.
monster,
Yeah.
and
They
it's like,
ruined him. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's just it. Like, I mean, he's not scary anymore, and that was the thing. But then they brought that back with Wes Craven's New Nightmare. They made him scary again.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what I liked about it.
I think that's one of the only ones I didn't see because I saw all the way through Jason Goes to Hell or not Jessica. What was it? I forget what it was, but it's like I saw like
Freddy's Dead.
yeah. But I saw like 5 or 6 of them, and then I was like, all right, I'm done.
No, check out Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It's a great movie. It's actually like basically the actors playing themselves, and Freddy is kind of going after them. So they bring in like back Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in the first movie, and Robert Englund plays himself. Wes
Okay.
Craven plays himself in the movie, and it's like, yeah, they're basically being tormented by Freddy. Freddy's come into the real world, kind of thing. And it's a really it's a great movie, great concept, and it was executed very well in my opinion. It's
Okay. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
definitely
that and
check
the
it
first
out.
movie are the two best of the series by
Okay.
far. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. All right, man. So do you have anything else that you want to have people check out, or that you want to promote?
I think I pimped everything that I've written so far.
All right, so the website is the best way to get a hold of you. Do you have a author's page on Amazon as well?
Yeah, there is an author's page on Amazon. It's got all my books. Also has like all the anthologies I've been published in, that kind of thing. So like it's there's uh also some you can find collections. Like my publisher's been doing a collection thing. So like they'll take like 3 books of the same theme by different authors and put them in one book. So they
Okay.
did that with Ashes. They did that with both Ashes to Ashes and Devil Music. So like if you're a fan of that kind of haunted house kind of style, there's actually a book out there with um,
I feel like
like
they used to do that a lot more, and they just kind of like stopped. Like with they used to do it with comics and with books and with everything, and they just stopped at some point.
well, Next Chapter started doing it about a year or so ago, and like they've done. There's one with Ashes to Ashes, my zombie book. It's like 3 basically zombie novels that are in one collection. It's called Graveborn. And
Like
I
different dates
honestly
by
cannot remember
different
what they called the
authors.
one with Devil Music, but yeah, it's 3 different authors, myself and 2 other guys, and they did the same thing with Devil Music, myself and 2 other guys, and it's just like basically like they have like a collection. I think the print book's like $40 or something for a paperback, but I mean $40 and you're getting 3 novels. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
are you on Goodreads or Instagram or like
I'm on
TikTok?
I'm on as many social medias as I can. I used to be on TikTok. I quit that one for a while. I might come back to it, but I wasn't putting out enough content on it, so I just figured I'm gonna scrap that one for now. But I mean, I've got an author page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky.
Well,
I'm
it's
on
not Twitter anymore.
Threads.
Now it's
Uh,
X.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it'll always be. I mean, I was on Twitter from the beginning, so it's gonna be I'll be calling it Twitter till the day I die. But I'm also I'm on Goodreads. I got an Amazon page. All the links are available on my website too. You scroll down to the bottom of the website, and there's like all the links to my social media. I'm also I have a newsletter on Substack,
Okay.
so
And
I'm a little all over the place. Keeps me busy.
the newsletters is kind of like a blog, is like something you update all the time.
I'm trying to. I actually just started it recently, so there's only one post there right now. But I'm trying. I'm also trying not to send out too many. I don't want to. I don't want to. Irritate people with how much stuff I'm putting out. So I'm basically trying to
Right.
do maybe an article once every 2 weeks to a month,
Okay.
and send that out. But yeah, it's just I struggle finding the content for it because I want to find stuff that people would be interested in.
Okay.
But it's brand new. Like I said, I just started it, and I'm trying to use it to draw more people to the books.
Yeah, we'll put the link to it up above, and hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, there'll be like more content for people to read.
Yeah. I plan on doing another one soon.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. Do you have anything else you want to
Oh
add?
no, but thanks for having me. That was great. I'd love to talk with you.